So then let's start this off. I won't be reading the chat while doing the panel because I will get distracted. So if there is anything wrong, then just shout at me, somebody. Otherwise, welcome to Otherkin and Anomalistic Studies, Overlaps and Interrelations. So this one is scripted. I will try to make it a bit more individual, or like say, a bit more relaxed, but let's see how it goes. In any case, brace yourself and follow me into a rabbit hole, or multiple ones actually. And frankly, each of them deserves an own panel. Hope you will find them interesting, but I would like to put forward two things. First, I am talking about stuff that is subject of hot debate. So some people will just dogmatically reject it or make fun of it. Others make conspiracy theories of it, which I will not go into. So, should you take it serious? I will leave it up to you. You just listen to it and make up your mind. Second, trigger warning. It's a bit like the last panel. I will talk a bit about the end of life and also coma experiences. Nothing explicit, so that is fine. But still, decide if you want to hear this. So, first of all, what are anomalistic studies? Well, broadly speaking, they are about exploring the unknown, the unexplainable or not yet explainable, the mysterious, as I call it, things that defy or challenge this physicalist, materialistic paradigm of today. And of course, sadly, they are not really accepted by mainstream science. To be specific, I will talk about past life memories, near-death experiences, coma experiences, and unidentified anomalous phenomena. But how is all that related to Otherkin? Well, in Otherkin spaces, I've seen many reports of past life memories, split-second reality shifts, or astral travels. Many of us believe in reincarnation or parallel lives or feel alien to this world, and some believe that they come from different star systems or even dimensions. These ideas, but are not original to the Otherkin community, of course. So the lead question is, can research of these tell us something about these things? And if yes, what does it mean? As a disclaimer, I want to point out that I just explain my own stuff, my interpretation for myself, and I cannot speak for the general Otherkin community, of course. So I want to offer an opinion and not impose it to anyone. So I don't want to go Tyrian Guide or whatever place tomorrow and go mad like, hey, Ember claims that all Otherkin come from outer space or something, yeah. So just to have said that. These are just my own weird thoughts. I will name institutions and researchers for each of the topics I do, just to do justice to the research. I have multiple sources, as you have seen at the beginning of the chat. In particular, I want to mention the books On the Banks of the River Styx, edited by Michael Nahm and others, and Coma and Near-Death Experiences by Alan and Beverly Pierce. I actually read the first one completely, but the second one, not yet completely. I just read into it. Also, I've drawn from YouTube videos of the institutions and the researchers I'll be mentioning. There's quite a lot. Also many other videos that I cannot all remember actually. But still, I'm not a professional in any of these fields, yeah. So you have every right to say I don't believe it's true or something. That's fine. You can take it seriously or just as a fun panel. But I'm actually, for my part, convinced that these phenomena I'll be talking about can hardly be brushed away with the mundane explanations unless you bluntly ignore or cherry-pick evidence or come up with very wild explanations like the skeptics like to do. So, enough with this preamble. Let's dive into reincarnation and past life memories. Now, reincarnation is an ancient concept in multiple religions, namely Buddhism and Hinduism. Western Christianity has been rejecting it, of course, but if you grew up in India, for example, it's very popular there. I mean, if you grew up there, you would probably never actually have asked if your soul reincarnates. Of course it does. As to how it exactly works, well, there are many different beliefs. I won't go into that now. On the other side, past life memories could be expected if reincarnation is a thing. You could expect that people would not forget everything when they reincarnate. And many of us report such memories and even detailing their identity based upon them. So is there anything that science can tell us? Is there any research outside of the Otherkin community? Well, it turns out yes. The key figure here is the late Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist who founded the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia. Now, Stevenson began researching past life memories in children in 1960. And then he spent over 40 years of international systematic collection of according reports and amassed over 3,000, not only from India, but also the US and Europe. Children would usually start talking about past lives at the age of 2 or 3 and often report about their previous death. As far as I know, there is no hypnosis or past life regression needed. So the children just start talking about their past lives all by themselves. And sometimes they even show behavior that don't fit into their current cultural environment because apparently they are behaving like they did in past lives. So some people growing up in Japan might behave like Europeans do. Also, some reports contain details that could be verified. They were mostly related to past life experiences, places, or mode of death. Most reports refer to human past lives, but there are also non-human animal ones. For example, a boy from Thailand remembering a past life as a snake. Now, Stevenson painstakingly documented this work in multiple books, critically assessing and discussing plausibility and validity of each report. In 1979, he published a book with 225 cases of children who had birthmarks or birth defects which matched fatal injuries from their past life. He also found that some children had phobias related to the mode of their previous death. However, Stevenson never claimed to have found proof for reincarnation. He only stated that it would be the best known explanation for his observations. His work is being continued by Dr. Jim Tucker, who is also with the Division of Perceptual Studies, and he keeps adding and publishing new cases all the time. So I found this really, really stunning. It is, of course, hotly debated, where some people, for some reason, don't at all like the idea of reincarnation and eagerly search for alternative explanations, which are not too convincing, if you ask me. But I've always believed in reincarnation, and I found this pretty much backed by the research. So for us as Otherkin, it means that past life memories are probably valid and not that all uncommon. Sadly, in some cultures, children reporting are socially stigmatized. For example, here in our culture, in the Western world. And they would usually stop talking about it or just take over the behaviors that are permitted in their cultural system so far. So this is a bit of a stigmatization that I think is similar to Otherkin in the way that we cannot really talk about our experiences to others. So this was life before birth. But what about life after death? And that gets us to near-death experiences, of course, which are frequently including out-of-body experiences. Now, this phenomenon used to be rather unknown until 1975, when American psychiatrist and philosopher Dr. Raymond Moody published his hallmark book, Life After Life. Other key researchers include Bruce Grayson, who is also with Virginia U's Department of Perceptual Studies, Pim van Lommel from the Netherlands, and the recently deceased Peter Fennick from the UK. The main institution on NDE research, that's near-death experience, is the International Association for Near-Death Studies, or IANS, founded in 1978 by Moody, Grayson, and others. IANS organizes annual symposia and workshops and conferences on researching NDEs. Now, near-death experiences are profound and life-changing, experienced by people who are close to death, or at least believed to be so, but return to life. A typical example is cardiac arrest patients who are brought back. So NDEs happen at a time where brain activity is either very minimal or has probably completely ceased, yet patients have still vivid and detailed and consistent conscious experiences. You might have heard about it as seeing a tunnel vision or crossing a bridge or whatever, seeing dead relatives, seeing angels or religious figures. So huge amount of documented reports on YouTube channels like Thanatos TV, Empirische Jenseitsforschung, and many others. Very fascinating to listen to. Research ranges the fraction of medical patients experiencing an NDE between 10% and 26%. So those are the ones that got like a surgery or cardiac arrest and were brought back. And 10 to 26% of those report an NDE. And most of those reports are very positive. And I mentioned the typical elements already. So actually, what people say seems to depend on their personal belief and their religion and also their culture to some point. At some point, then, people are normally facing a barrier that, if crossed, would make return to life impossible. And oftentimes people report that they were sent back because they have a task to fulfill. Sometimes also people have an out-of-body experience from which they can perceive the real-world environment, such as the hospital or the operation room they are in, from a disembodied perspective. In some cases, this type of NDE gives experiencers knowledge they shouldn't have. For example, specific objects placed in another room, activities of family members who are at remote locations, or talks of doctors and nurses in the hospital. When this knowledge can be validated later, researchers speak of veridical NDEs. And a study from 2006 listed 93 such accounts, over 90% of which included evidence that the patient's perceptions were accurate. And I think there is something to this. So NDEs are often described as more real than reality, and they are typically life-changing. So patients lose their fear of death, and often they return with a strong notion of universal oneness and love that has great influence on their continuing life. They often develop higher compassion and decreased materialistic attitudes. NDEs are strong enough to even convince atheists of the existence of life after death. Now, of course, the unexplained aspect of NDEs is that conscious experience like this should not be possible under these conditions that the brain is in, at least as of state-of-the-art neuroscientific knowledge. And that greatly challenges the materialistic assumption that consciousness is a sole product of brain activity. Despite decades of research, there is no accepted solution to this dilemma, and the materialists actually continue to stubbornly deny the possibility of consciousness existing independent from the body. So they come up almost every year with some alternative explanations, sometimes very wild, that fit their physicalist worldview. And I'm not the only one who is annoyed by it. There is a philosopher living in the Netherlands, Bernardo Kastrup, and I pretty much like that guy, published a paper in 2016 entitled the physicalist worldview as neurotic ego defense mechanism, stating that this vigorous worldview defense, quote, creates an opportunity for the intellectual elites who develop and promote it to maintain a sense of meaning in their own lives, end quote. So how I see these die-hard skeptics who dogmatically brush off or devalidate or ridicule the ideas of reincarnation, past lives, or life after death. And that leads to a kind of mud battle between skeptics and NDE researchers. And the skeptics repeatedly use the same arguments to debunk the afterlife hypothesis. Just in spring last year, there was a group of neuroscientists around Charlotte Martial who published a paper called A Neuroscientific Model of Near-Death Experiences. And they combined a number of approaches to mundanely explain the phenomena, including oxygen depletion in the blood, the brain in its last dying moments somehow magically firing a plethora of neural signs to comfort the patient, somehow magically leading to these life-changing experiences, and of course hallucinations and false memories. Now this paper was criticized by many NDE researchers, well, maybe not so many, but it was reviewed by Bruce Grayson and a colleague of his, who respectfully but meticulously deconstructed each of the neuroscientists' approaches using observed evidence. So it seems quite clear that the skeptics always resort to the same techniques. They are omitting key observations and evidence, and they are reframing defining features of the phenomenon, ignoring previous findings, refusing to accept limits of physicalism, excluding alternative models, oversimplifying things, or sometimes even resorting to unproven theories and assumptions. And this is something we can observe for all anomalistic phenomena, more or less. To me, it's much more convincing to look at the stance of the serious NDE researchers. And they are objective in the sense of accepting the phenomenon, but seeing it as possible indication, but not scientific proof for the existence of an afterlife. And again, I see parallels between these skeptic arguments and those of the anti-kin folks, because they also like to say, oh, well, it's just a delusion, you are hallucinating, it's just a dream, and yada, yada. So this is somehow universal, I think. But of course, the indication of an afterlife, in my view, it opens up every possibility for us Otherkin, at least if you are spiritually inclined, to experience our true selves or our home worlds when this current life is completed. And I'm surely looking forward to this. I think there is every possibility here. So, that is quite positive so far. We looked at past lives and afterlife. What about parallel lives then? They are a thing for some of us, and I've read some discussion in the main chat actually quite a minute ago, and they are quite a common concept in spirituality. And then I've seen some Otherkin reporting spontaneous but very short-lived reality shifts. So like the feeling of being in another reality, or really maybe a physical or more like a visual impression just for some split of a second or something. So is that possible? Can one experience a different life while still on this planet? Well, of course, you will immediately think of dreams, and they can be extremely real. I just, like a couple of hours ago, had a very stunning experience with a lucid dream. And this idea that they may be portals to other realities, it's been around since ancient times, and it's still entertained by modern researchers. And of course, lucid dreams and astral travels are known phenomena and even trainable skills. So it's at least a hint that alternate realities can be experienced, especially when physical senses are suspended, like when sleeping. And that leads us to a very young field of anomalistic studies. It is about patients in medically induced coma. And this is investigated by Alan and Beverly Pierce, as well as Michael Nahn and others. Now, many reports around this read terrible, and they were very traumatizing for the patients, of course. However, some reports are less traumatic, but very realistic. There are even reports of having experienced full alternative lives, minute by minute, as if the patient's consciousness went somewhere else. And what is only 2 weeks in this reality feels like 20 years to them. There's really reports that tell this. And I mean, you can always say that it is a fake report or something, but I don't see a reason to do so, yeah, because patients normally don't like to talk about it because they realize that nobody will believe them, maybe, unless they are lucky and have a researcher around, but they might even think that they are going mad themselves, yeah. But still, in this lifelong, so to say, experiences, they can form relationships and they can learn skills in this alternate reality. And that reality feels as real as it possibly can, as it seems. And that leaves the patients totally puzzled when they wake up from coma, yeah. And they often don't have anyone to talk about it because others just dismiss the experience as hallucinations or false memories that somehow pop out of somewhere in the process of waking up from the coma. Yeah, so of course it's very unclear how all of this can come up in the first place, because heavy medication during the coma should render the patient's brain incapable to produce such detailed and consistent experiences or memories of such experiences. Yeah, well, the speculation that the memories come up when people are waking up, it doesn't seem to do the experience justice, as I think. It's more like brushing it off. Yeah, it's a devalidation that brings, as I said, patients to believe themselves that they have gone mad in many cases. But I mean, this experience obviously obliterates your understanding and perception of reality. Yeah, especially if it's of materialistic nature. Because I mean, if you can experience another reality just like that, how can you be sure that any given reality is real? I mean, just imagine you would suddenly wake up from this life and being told that your whole life was an illusion. So what can we learn from that as Otherkin? Yes, it is possible to experience alternative realities that are equally real as this one, as either brain or, which seems more likely to me, consciousness can produce such reality when the physical senses are inhibited. And that is pretty clearly demonstrated. And it calls the question if the reality we are currently in is just another such construct. Well, if you ask me, it is. I think so. Parallel lives are possible. Which of them you perceive, I think it's a matter of focus. But yeah, then again, you see, anomalous experiences are often devalidated and brushed off, just like anti-kin devalidate our other experiences. And this skeptic stuff is also around for the last phenomenon for today. And that is by far the largest rabbit hole of them all. Unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, and those were formerly known as UFOs, unidentified flying objects. And I think most of you will have heard about it. Now, when I've so far called this dispute between researchers and skeptics a mud battle, here we have a fierce and fully fledged turf war. So it's worse. And it's going on for decades already. But let's start at the beginning. So there are hundreds of thousands of reported UFO sightings, unidentified aircraft. Some even say they go into the millions. And some of them can be found in ancient sources from Egypt, Greece, and Rome, if you interpret them like this, yeah. So they come from military and civil pilots, ground personnel, authorities, and laypersons all over the world. Maybe documented by photos or videos, And notably, some sightings have multiple witnesses. There were like mass sightings, including the Belgian UFO wave from 1989, the Phoenix lights in 1997, or most recently the New Jersey drones in 2024. And of course, many of these sightings, but not all, can be explained by professional investigators. There's a couple of important historic names here, as there are J. Allen Hynek, an astronomer who was involved in Project Blue Book, an early US Air Force program on UFO investigation from the 1950s. And also active at the time was French astronomer and ufologist Jacques Vallée, who is still active today. Then there are multiple organizations which collect reports and investigate cases. For example, the International Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. A lot of cases remain unexplained, and that gives a rise to all sorts of theories and allegations. Since UAPs may pose a considerable threat to airspace security, there are multiple governmental and military organizations for investigation. For example, the All Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, which is subordinate to the US Ministry of Defense. And by the way, it doesn't have quite a good standing in the UAP scene because they are always publishing videos that are actually clarified cases, and when they actually should publish cases that are not clear. Well, there is another office that is part of the French Space Agency. So the US is not the only state or country who is doing this kind of research and trying to uncover these things. And there's also scientists, for example, at the University of Würzburg in Germany, and many private organizations around the topic. So the Soul Foundation, they are doing symposia and conferences about the topic, and Skywatcher, that is a US-based company who wants to call UFOs and record them close by and provide some superior video material. So far they didn't yet, but they announced it for early this year. Well, still waiting for this. And then, of course, a number of reports tell about military activity related to the sightings, and that raises suspicions that military and government hide the truth about the phenomenon, which is confirmed by a growing amount of whistleblowers, often high-ranked former military officers who claim that there are retrieved alien craft, retrieved by the military, and somehow exploited, investigated by scientists. And some of them even say that alien bodies were retrieved. And some of them testify under oath now before the US Congress. The first whistleblower who did that was David Grush. That was 2023. And since then, there is a major movement towards disclosure, which is also picked up by the media. There is a recent documentary, Age of Disclosure, featuring a lot of whistleblowers. And then there is a new Spielberg movie coming out in June to US cinemas, and it's called Disclosure Day. So, of course, these are a continuation of decade-long media coverage on the topic. I mean, who has seen an alien movie? I think pretty much everyone did. And then, of course, on the other side, there's a huge amount of pranksters who fake videos and fake reports and photos and so on. And that is where the skeptics come in, of course. Skeptics are like the antagonists of the investigators and ufologists. So some of them are really professional debunkers who try to deconstruct and devalidate the sighting reports. But even they often cannot come up with compelling evidence that speaks against the stating that these things are just unexplained. Sometimes they have to admit that. So, for example, in the Belgian UFO wave, the UFOs were spotted by more than 2,000 witnesses, and that was causing substantial attention by public and media and officials. But then the skeptics criticized just that. I mean, if there are so many witnesses, then why are there so little photos or videos? Yeah, that's what the skeptics talk about. And also they claim that this was mainly caused by a media-driven mass hysteria. Yeah, so more people took a look into the skies and just saw lights that were not really there, or were just stars or something. Yeah, so but I mean, it's a bit problematic to explain it all away, yeah? Because I mean, the initial sighting apparently was made by 2 policemen, and then there is also the report that 2 F-16 jet fighters of the Belgian army went up, and they were unable to track down a craft which was but seen by multiple military radar stations. I think 7 of them. And then again, this is brushed off by the skeptics as radar malfunctions. Yeah, I mean, 7 radar stations malfunctioning at the same time. Yeah, good luck. But still, there's also quite a lot of ridicule and stigmatization. For example, taking the Phoenix Lights sightings, there were thousands of witnesses who saw a V-shaped object flying over Arizona and Nevada, and that caused huge public interest. So the governor of Arizona felt somehow pressured, maybe, and held a press conference after that happened, and announced to have found the responsible, only to present a person dressed in an alien costume right on stage. Well, people did not find that too funny. And ironically, 10 years later, the same former governor admitted to have seen a UFO himself. And then, of course, there's people who exploit this whole thing to make money or invoke fear, like spreading the rumor that evil reptilian aliens roam Earth, actually disguised as humans. Yeah, some people even say they are shapeshifters. And some experiencers who were actually abducted by aliens report that there are reptile-like aliens, amongst other species, of course. But this like evil reptilian law is an invention that is propelled by a guy named David Icke. I don't know, maybe I should have mailed them, but I've asked about the difference between these reptilians and dragons in several YouTube channels. But people would rather make fun of it all than giving a meaningful answer. I think they are different species, sounds like. So, to be honest, there's so much going on here that I don't really know whom to believe. And actually, it leads me to come back to the base and ground of it all, and that is the experiencer reports. And they range from single people having seen lights in the sky that move strangely, not too spectacular actually. But then there are also these mass sightings, and then there are also meetings with aliens and abduction reports. So MUFON field researcher Preston Dennett has over 1,000 case reports on his YouTube channel. Very, very interesting to listen to. A part of which come from his own investigations, and others can be found at other places as well, somewhere in the internet. Yeah, so you can actually not say that this guy has like invented all of those cases, because they are also covered by other media. I mean, a part of those will likely be pranks, but I find it hard to believe that all of them are. Many witnesses don't have an apparent reason for faking, so many strictly want to remain anonymous or keep their secrets for decades for the fear of facing disbelief and ridicule. Many come forth despite negative consequences, and they don't seek attention or make money from their story. A particularly stunning phenomenon is that the sighted craft seem to adapt their shape to the technology that is known at the time. And that can be seen in many reports that date back to the 1950s. It could point back to it all being some kind of hallucination, but it might also be that the phenomenon itself interacts with the observer consciousness, creating different perception. And that is known as the distortion theory, coined by Spanish UFO researcher Caravaca. The theory is backed by witnesses and whistleblowers claiming that UAP are connected to mental and psi phenomena. So that is something that came up just recently. And so the idea is that the aliens can actually alter the way that the craft are being seen in a sort of like mental influencing of the observers. Yeah, I mean, make of it what you wish. But personally, I mean, after hearing all this stuff, I am convinced at least that something is going on here. I think laughing it off is way too easy. If it is aliens, who knows? Yeah, that's a question. However, I definitely think it's fascinating and unexplained. And now it raises a few interesting questions about the relation to Otherkin, of course. Could it be that what today is perceived as UAPs or aliens previously was seen as demons or angels or mythical beings? I mean, back in the day, like people did not have that technology that was flying around up there. Yeah, so could they have seen things that are just unknown from whatever source they come? Could they have seen them like dragons? Are these just manifestations of the unknown? I mean, that is not actually a new idea. Yeah? This idea that dragons or other mythical beings could relate to aliens, it's being propelled, for example, by the late Erich von Däniken. And the idea that aliens come from parallel universes is also quite contemporary. Some people also believe that aliens may appear in human form, and yeah, many actually fear this. So actually, somehow, this term alien could be replaced by otherkin for a lot of these statements, I think. Aliens directly revealing themselves, that would pretty much equate us turning into our kin types and walking in the streets as dragons all of a sudden. Yeah. And maybe, well, some people would see me when I tell that I'm a dragon. Some people would say that, you are a reptilian in human disguise, and so on. Yeah. So actually, if we did do that, I mean, change to our kin types, I would be thrilled to watch the reactions. But I don't think that all reactions would be too positive. And that leads me to believe that humanity might not just be ready for disclosure. Yeah, some of them are, but in total, it might be a bit catastrophic. Needs to be done with care, I think, because I mean, apparently there's an existential intolerance of human societies when confronted with the radical other. And then I also see some parallels between otherkin and direct alien contactees. Preston Dennett has many abduction reports on his channel as well. And most of them actually, people are abducted by humanoid aliens. And I actually asked Preston if he could do some non-humanoid cases, because they are much more interesting, I think. I mean, just aliens with 4 legs, or why not 5 legs or 6 or something, and just like non-physical energy beings or something. But yeah, Preston said there are not many reports like that. So yeah, he just doesn't know enough to make an own video about them. Yeah. Well, abduction reports are often dismissed as dreams or hallucinations again, but also many of them are multi-witness. Some cases are actually there is someone being abducted and another person is standing nearby and sees that they are freezing for a while, or whatever, that something happens. In some cases are also confirmed because the abductees just go missing for a few hours and somebody else notices them, or they arrive at their destination like 30 minutes or a few hours too late, yeah, and they say, yeah, we cannot remember what happened. Yeah, so this is typical. This is an effect of missing time. Yeah. And so the point is, there are so many reports that it's just fair to ask, what on earth is actually going on here? What happened to these people? So to me, this is just a clear hint that some things are happening that just are not understood. Yeah, something is going on. And of course, yeah, these questions, what really happened, are only valid until you have experienced it yourself. Yeah, so I didn't. I would love to, because it's just as an Otherkin awakening. I think alien contact seems to be an exceptional experience that has high personal significance. Points to a world beyond the obvious, and it's a social taboo. You cannot simply talk about it. I mean, I secretly wish to be seen as other than human too. And then I wonder all the time if aliens know that Otherkin exist. And if so, what do they know about us? I would love to ask that. So actually, I do hope for disclosure, as problematic as it might be. And I'll keep an eye on it, definitely. So, yeah, there we are. Many things I could not talk about in this panel for reasons of timing. For example, there is a new discovery about telepathy in the autistic community. Quite interesting, but I didn't look into it yet. So summarizing, I'm really intrigued by these anomalistic studies. Find them very important. So they disrupt this standard human-centric materialist paradigm and stretch the limits of what is believed to be possible. And I think they can shed new light to Otherkin identity as well. On the other hand, stigma and dogmatic skepticism is a hindrance to studying the unknown. Or, to quote an article by Janice Wilhauer in Psychology Today, science advances by exploring the unknown, not by declaring it off limits. Thank you for listening. Ah, there we are. Whoa, that was dense. Well, I made it in time. And, oh, thanks. I just hope it wasn't too dry. Let me scroll to the beginning of the chat and see if there are any questions. Dreams. Oh, somebody found that Psychology Today article. Yeah, hang on. I know that was actually my own sources. Oh, damn. Okay, hang on. I'm just scrolling through the chat. Everybody checking if the sound works. Do we have some questions? Aren't we all alien? Yes. Well, I usually don't call myself alien because it always sounds like coming from another planet or another star system in this universe, and that is not the case for me. Yeah. So, of course, for somebody, for some, it might be like this, but I'm more like of an interdimensional being. Yeah. But well, still, could call me alien. I wouldn't mind. Fascinating. I need to read this later. I remember life as a dolphin. There we go. Yep, not the only one who remembers. Oh, hang on. There's Seth about near-death experiences. Saw words written on top of the lamps inside the room that were only known by those who wrote it there. Zeph, there was this study that actually tried to recreate veridical perception of near-death experiences. Yeah, so they placed, I think they placed some writing or some sign at a place that you could not see from the operation table, but only if you were floating above. But the thing is, it wasn't too successful. I don't know if it somehow worked, but I think it didn't. The problem with these things is that you just cannot recreate this in the lab. Yeah, so it's impossible to control what people experience. Yeah, so and then also there is very rarely just an NDE report if you want to have one. Yeah, I just today read an article from Thanatos TV about the AWARE-2 study. And they had like, I think 560 people in the study, and only like 10% of them actually were coming close to death and were coming back. So the others actually died. And then only, I think 23 of those 10% had an NDE, or was it 6 of them? Yeah, only 6 of them had an NDE that could actually be investigated. So I mean, that's just about 1% of all of them. Yeah, and so that is very, very difficult to research. Yeah. Which is maybe also, yeah, well, obviously reason that it's not part of mainstream science. Well, mainstream science always needs stuff to be reproducible in the lab. Yeah, it's the same for the other effects as well. Okay. Oh yeah, there's Adam Savage. Da, 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 da. Letting go of life. Yeah, to me, I mean, this body is just a vessel. I mean, this is I've had my own experiences, so they're not on near-death experiences, but it comes maybe a bit close. Yep, still embrace life. We are living for moments like this one. Yeah, this reptilian alien disguised as human thing. This is on so many levels, it's problematic. I don't like it as well. I always tell people when they tell that thing, hey, reptilians are nice. Yeah, they are great. But yeah, well, don't know if people believe me. People in older times witnessed weird shapes and lights in the skies and didn't know what it meant. Oh, that sounds a bit like this near-death visions. Yeah, so previous to that, that's also an anomalistic field of study. I have a knack for these topics. Yes. Well, actually, I'm a scientist. You could argue that I should be more grounded, but I'm flying up in the sky and just yeah, just I'm interested in these things. Okay, now we are actually reaching the end of the chat. Everyone always so many applauding. Oh my dear. I have a few fictives who remember their previous lives. Yeah, there we go again. And another dolphin. Interesting. Yep, it should be studied more. But as I said, problematic. Do you know of the relation to these experiences and time traveler encounters? Wonderlight asks. Time traveling. Not for these ones, actually. I mean, for the coma experiences, there's people don't actually say that they traveled in time. For the past life experiences, yeah, I mean, the past lives happened in the past, but in many cases, it's the recent past. I can remember this one case that Tucker always comes up with of a boy who remembers a life as a World War II pilot. Very interesting case, but also, yeah, well, he stresses this case a lot. So there were others as well. Yeah, the alien thing, time travel, I didn't hear about it. However, I mean, what is sometimes the case is that people are just losing memory and losing time. Yeah, and sometimes they stay away. Well, abductees, I mean, they stay away for days. Although this is rare. And then Yeah, they will go missing for days, but that can hardly be called time travel now. Yeah, cryptide. Okay, that's fun. That's needed. Oh, hang on. Yeah, just needed to clear my throat. Okay, so maybe since I don't see any more questions, if you got any question, just PM me or something. I mean, I might be in the voice chat also, not today probably, but maybe tomorrow. And okay, is writing something. Meanwhile, let me look. Yes, I talked about this, Akir. Time traveler encounters? Not really. Oh, hang on. That gives me another idea, actually. Yeah, for the UAP stuff. Some people say that the aliens would be humans that come from the future. This is quite a popular belief, but I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Because, I mean, this is the typical human supremacy thing, yeah? So, yeah, if humans are so great, then they can develop all these technologies in the future and come back to us today to help us striving forward and to help us not extinguishing ourselves and so on and yada yada. The thing is, so many aliens don't seem to be interested in humans too much. They just collect like branches and stuff from the ground and stones and biological stuff and so on. So I personally don't buy it. Yeah, so but I just got reminded of that. Okay, no more questions. So I officially close it. Thanks again for listening. Yeah, first panel done. Okay, thank you all. See you around.